Good morning, Year 3. We've reached our final comprehension lesson for our book, The Treehouse, but we're on to the last chapter. I've been really impressed with people's comprehension work and how it's progressed throughout last term, making sure that we are punctuating our writing really well, and we are really trying to make sure we're answering those questions as a full sentence. And I am seeing lots of people underlining those key words in the question to help begin their answers. So very well done, I've been really impressed. Today we'll finish our comprehension work by answering these final 6 questions that are on the sheet. Some people I know complete this task more quickly than others, so if you wanted an extra challenge, you could actually cross out where I have written the page numbers, and then you have a slightly trickier job of trying to find the answers in the text. So as an extra challenge, you could take away the page numbers that I've written on the sheet, cross them out and see if you can still find those answers. Once you finish those 6 questions, again, you can write and answer 3 of your own questions, and they can be about any chapter in the book. So you could write 3 questions about any chapter from the book and try to answer those questions again as a nice, clear sentence if you have time. So I'm going to let you get started on reading that chapter, or if you'd like to, listen to me for the last time, read the final chapter, chapter 7. Again, if you do have the book in front of you, it's really useful to follow along as well. Then you can work out what chapter we're on, and also it's really useful skill to follow the words. Chapter 7, Christmas. On Christmas Eve, Sprog woke up and stared at the ceiling. For a moment, he didn't know why he felt so sad. Then he remembered. Dada wasn't there. Tonight, they'd be hanging up their stockings. Tomorrow they would go to church and then have Christmas dinner and presents at Grandma's house. But Dada wouldn't be there. It was awful, but Sprog didn't moan. He was too miserable. It was William who moaned. From the moment he got up, he banged down to breakfast with odd socks on and his jumper back to front. While they were wrapping presents, he sulked and got the sellotape tangled up, and he wouldn't make any place cards for Christmas dinner. Why should I? Who cares where we sit? But we always have place cards, said Sprog. We always have Dada, William said crossly, but we're not going to have him, are we? By lunchtime, even Mum was looking gloomy. But she didn't snap. She served up the fish and chips and sat down with her elbows on the table. This is no good, is it? She said. We can't be unhappy at Christmas. Let's do something special this afternoon to cheer ourselves up. Like what? Said William. Like having a bonfire, said Mum. We can bake potatoes in the ashes and have scones and mince pies. And we could make a pumpkin lantern out of your pumpkin. But he's saving that, said Sprog, when Dada comes home. No, I'm not, said William loudly. His face was very red. I'm tired of waiting. Let's make a lantern. So they did. They scooped out the middle of the pumpkin, and Mum made a pumpkin pie while William and Sprog cut a big scary face in the side of the pumpkin shell. Then they went down to the garden to build the bonfire. There was lots of stuff to burn on it. Old raspberry canes, dried up potato and pumpkin plants, the prickly cases of the chestnuts, and dead leaves and dry branches from the tree. By the time they had heaped it all up, the bonfire was taller than Sprog, and it was getting dark. Mum went back to the house to get the food and the matches, and Sprog and William climbed up the tree castle. The bonfire looked exciting, but somehow not as exciting as it should have been. They stared down at it, not quite knowing what to say. Then there was a funny noise from the house, almost like a scream. Sprog looked nervously at William. What was that, Mum? Don't know. William looked nervous too. Go up to the watchtower, Sir Stephen, and see if you can see anything. Very least, Sir William. Sprog scrambled up the rope ladder, settled himself and picked up the binoculars, carefully scanned the windows of the house, but the curtains were pulled. I can't see anything. Have another look, said William. Sprog scanned the house again, but there was nothing. He was just going to put the binoculars down when he saw a light at the kitchen window. 2 lights, red then green. William, Mum's sickening. Come at once, something good. Probably more mince pies, said William. I'll go and help her carry them. You stay and keep watch. Sprog stared through the binoculars. It was too dark to see William walking up the garden, but he heard his feet, first on the grass and then on the path. A second later, the feet came back the other way. More of them this time. Mum must be coming too, with the food. Sprog reached for the torch that hung next to the binoculars and gave a quick flash of light. Who's there? A red light shone back from the bottom of the tree. Friend. Then Sprog heard someone climbing the rope ladder. Fingers tapped against the bottom telephone tin. Sprog picked up the top tin and put it to his ear. Are you there, Sir Stephen? Said William's voice. It sounded a bit odd. But Sprog couldn't hear the words all right. Come down straight away. Mum's going to light the bonfire. Very carefully, Sprog put the telephone tin and the torch and the binoculars back in their places. Then he climbed down the rope ladder. William was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the platform. Sprog couldn't see his face because it was too dark. What's Mum doing up here? Said Sprog. I thought she was going to light the bonfire. I am, Mum's voice said from down on the ground. There was a scrape of a match. Then all of a sudden, bright flare of light from the huge bonfire. And Sprog saw who was sitting in the cabin. Dada! He flung himself forward. Dada grabbed him and hugged him. I did it, Sprog, he said. They told me there wasn't a seat on the plane, but I made them give me one. If you don't let me go back to my boys, I said, I'll sit on the runway and stop the plane taking off. And you got here, yelled Sprog. You got here in time for Christmas. While the bonfire was cooking the potatoes, they lit William's pumpkin lantern and put it in the cabin. It grinned mischievously at them as they got everything else ready. Mum sent up some rugs to keep them warm, and then she loaded the food into the umbrella hoist. Baked potatoes fresh from the fire, scones and homemade raspberry jam, pumpkin pie and hot mince pies. William and Sprog hauled them up and spread them out on the platform. It's a feast, said Dada, a midnight feast. I grew the pumpkin for the pie, said William. That was where he hid my toffees, said Sprog, when we were testing the telephone. And I told him to go up to the watchtower and look with the binoculars, like when I spotted the enemies we shot with green potatoes, when I saw the signal about mince pies. And that's when Mum fixed a rope ladder for, after Sprog picked the raspberries for the jam. Stop! Dada put his hands over his ears and pulled a terrible face. It would take me weeks to explore this castle. This must be the most complicated chestnut tree in the world. Telephones, watchtowers, hoists. And did you roast the chestnuts as well? Mum grinned. We couldn't. The squirrels must have got them all. I didn't see any except the prickly cases. That's right, said William. Sprog didn't say anything. He just stood up and reached very carefully into the hole behind the cabin. His plastic bag was still there, and he pulled it out. Happy Christmas, Dada, he said. I saved these till you came. And he tipped the chestnuts into Dada's lap in a shiny brown shower. For a second, Dada didn't say a word. He just gazed down at the chestnuts. Then he looked up at Sprog and William with dancing eyes, and it growled a tremendous, ferocious monster growl. Right, you're coming to roast chestnuts in the bonfire, the way I did with my dad. And if you don't like them, I'll boil you in tomato soup. And that's the end of the story. Well done for listening. Thank you, Year 3. If you have any problems, just come on to Google Meet and we can go through some of those questions together.